Hey everyone, this is Peter Hall. I'm gonna do a video about Bernie Sanders and how he supports giving convicted criminals like the Boston Marathon bomber and sex offenders, etc., the right to vote. I just did like a screen recording of me reading a Fox News editorial and a few articles about it. So here you go. Okay. Trump calls Sanders' support of voting rights for Boston bomber deeply offensive. Why won't Bernie Sanders admit he's a capitalism success story? Oh, that's a different video. We'll watch that later. Okay. President Trump's re-election campaign fired back Wednesday at Democratic presidential candidate Bernie Sanders for arguing that convicted Boston Marathon bomber, Dzhokhar, I don't know how to pronounce that guy's name, Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, and other violent criminals should be allowed to vote from prison, calling the idea deeply offensive. The extremity and radicalism of the 2020 Democrats knows no bounds, Trump campaign press secretary Kayleigh McEnany told Fox News, giving imprisoned terrorists, sex offenders, and murderers the right to vote is an outrageous proposal that is deeply offensive to innocent victims across this country, some of whom lost their lives and are forever disenfranchised by the very killers that 2020 Democrats seek to empower. The statement offered a preview of sorts of the battle to come between Trump's campaign and the still evolving Democratic field. Sanders remains the frontrunner in that crowded primary race, though former Vice President Joe Biden is expected to jump in the race on Thursday, and polling consistently shows him at or near the top of the field. Can't believe anyone's voting for supporting Biden. I read an article yesterday where he said that world leaders are calling him and begging him to take Trump on and run for president in 2020. Yeah, people are actually begging you to run against Trump, Biden. Shut the fuck up. Okay. Sanders' statement about voting rights for inmates drew in the Trump campaign after generating controversy all week. During a CNN town hall on Monday night, a Harvard student asked Sanders if his position on expanding voting rights to felons in prison would support enfranchising people like Boston Marathon bomber Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, as well as those convicted of sexual assault whose votes could have a direct impact on women's rights. Sanders first responded by saying he wanted a vibrant democracy with higher voter turnout, and blasted cowardly Republican governors who he said were trying to suppress the vote. The Vermont senator then argued that the Constitution says everybody can vote and that some people in jail can vote. But I think the right to vote is inherent to our democracy, Sanders said. Yes, even for terrible people. Shut the fuck up, Bernie. In Bernie's credit, however, okay. It's funny how, like, Democrats are saying that convicted criminals like Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, or whatever that guy's name is, the Boston Marathon bomber, and other dangerous criminals, it's funny how they think they should have the right to vote, yet so-called white supremacists, alt-righters, and neo-Nazis shouldn't be allowed to free speech online. To Bernie's credit, he has publicly stated that protesters like shouting down people at public speeches and stuff like that is disingenuous and intellectually dishonest, and it shows how they're weak because they're trying to physically stop people from speaking instead of, like, counteracting speech with speech. But yeah, Bernie Sanders, to his credit, said that. But did he publicly denounce CBS when they aired that advertisement for their show, The Good Fight, where that black guy was going around saying, "Is it okay to punch a Nazi unprovoked?" And going on about how, like, not all speech is equal, some speech deserves a more visceral response, blah, blah, blah. Did he condemn CBS for doing that? No. So Bernie needs to be more vocal and condemn, like, the big tech companies and the Democrats for trying to silence speech of people that they don't approve of. Bernie needs to do that. So, fuck you, Bernie. No, felons do not deserve the right to fucking vote. Let's see, I'm gonna read the article. "2020 presidential candidate Senator Bernie Sanders on Monday defended his stance for granting voting rights to criminals in prison, including the Boston Marathon bomber and convicted sexual assaulters. No, they don't deserve the fucking right to vote. This Boston bomber should be fucking executed." During a CNN town hall on Monday night, Harvard student Ann Carlston asked if his position would support enfranchising people like Boston Marathon bomber Dzhokhar Sarnoff, who she noted as a convicted terrorist and murderer, as well as those convicted of sexual assault, whose votes could have a direct impact on women's rights. Sanders first responded by saying he wanted a vibrant democracy with higher voter turnout, and blasted cowardly Republican governors, who he said were trying to suppress the vote. The Vermont senator then argued that the Constitution says everybody can vote, and that some people in jail can vote. If somebody commits a serious crime, sexual assault, murder, they're going to be punished. They may be in jail for 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, their whole lives. That's what happens when you commit a serious crime, Sanders elaborated. But I think the right to vote is inherent to our democracy. Yes, even for terrible people. Because once you start chipping away and you say, that guy committed a terrible crime, not gonna let him vote, well, that person did that, not gonna let that person vote, you're running down a slippery slope. So, I believe that people who commit crimes, they pay the price. When they get out of jail, I believe they certainly should have the right to vote. But I do believe that even if they are in jail, they're paying their price to society, but that should not take away their inherent American right to participate in our democracy. So, Bernie, if you think that people in prison should participate in our democracy and should be able to vote, why don't you come out and condemn your fellow Democrats, condemn the media, condemn the big tech companies and all these other people that are trying to silence speech online? Why don't you do that, huh? I'm getting fucking tired of voting. I've been voting since, like, I was... The first time I voted was... during Barack Obama's first election. That was when I first voted, and it's been over 10 years since I first voted, and I'm fucking sick of voting because I live in California and my vote doesn't mean shit out here. Everything like even if you vote, like because like everybody, like California is like a super liberal dominated state, everything I vote for gets overturned or doesn't succeed. And then like in other countries, even in America, like, it's being shown to us that even if, like, what we vote for does pass, the people in power are just going to ignore it and try to figure out ways to circumvent the people's voice. So, voting doesn't mean shit. It's just it's an exercise in futility. We should treat, politics. We should treat people running for office, local politics, and state and national politics as they should be treated like how we're treated whenever we go for job interviews. They should be that fucking brutal. Because looking for work today fucking sucks. Everybody wants you to have experience, like at least a year's experience to do whatever it is you're trying to get hired for. No one's going to give you experience. you already have to have it. And yet these politicians, every couple of years, they think that they have the right to come up here and, like, schmooze us and wine and dine us and tell us how they're going to change things. And then when we elect them, they go back to screwing us and just looking out for themselves. CNN anchor Chris Cuomo pressed the Democrats' frontrunner, asking him if he was sure about that, since he effectively was writing an opposition ad. Sanders dismissed such concerns, saying he'd written many 30-second opposition ads throughout his life. "This is what I believe. Do you believe in democracy? Do you believe that every single American 18 years of age or older who is an American citizen has the right to vote? You want illegals to vote too, Bernie, not just citizens." Sanders continued, "This is a democracy. We've got to expand that democracy, and I believe that every single person does have the right to vote." Why don't you fight for people's right to free speech, Bernie? Like I said, the big tech, the media, and the Democrats are trying to do their very best to censor people like me from speech, even online. So why don't you stick up for that instead of for the right of convicted felons to vote? Kamala Harris. She doesn't have a position. Every politician out there these days, you ask them a question and they dodge it. "I think that's a great conversation to have. I'm so glad you asked that question," and then they don't answer it. Kamala Harris backtracks, now says criminals like Boston Bomber should be deprived of right to vote. U.S. Senator Kamala Harris is now backtracking after initially saying we should have that conversation about allowing criminals currently in prison, such as the Boston Bomber, to vote. Appearing at a televised town hall event following 2020 Democratic frontrunner Bernie Sanders, who made headlines by advocating for voting rights for felons serving time, Harris is also asked to weigh in. "I think we should have that conversation," Harris told CNN anchor Don Lemon. What a cop-out. Well, that conversation appears to have ended. Sanders had said that those convicted of sexual assault and crimes like terrorism, like Boston Marathon bomber Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, should be able to vote in order for the U.S. to sustain a vibrant democracy and to increase voter turnout. But on Tuesday, while speaking to a press gaggle in New Hampshire, Harris expanded on her remarks at the CNN town hall and gave what her national press secretary, Ian Sams, called a thoughtful answer. Harris called the issue of allowing felons to vote in prison complex and said she was going to talk to experts about the matter. She added that there was a lot of work to do regarding the 6 million people who serve time and are still prohibited from voting. "Do I think that people who commit murder, people who are terrorists, should be deprived of their rights? Yeah, I do. I'm a prosecutor," Harris said. "There has to be serious consequences for the most extreme types of crimes." Also during Monday's town hall, Harris joined her colleague, U.S. Senator Elizabeth Warren, in calling for President Trump's impeachment. She also vowed to take executive action on gun control if Congress doesn't act in her first 100 days in office as president. Kamala Harris. Alright. So, I guess I'm done with this video, and I'll see you guys later.